So, hi, folks, and welcome to another Digital Transformation Lab podcast. My name is Darragh O'Riordan, and this is one of our podcasts on the customer success series. But today we are talking about customer experience, and I'm delighted to welcome David Heneghan to the podcast. David is the CEO and co-founder of CX Index. And David, I've really been looking forward to our conversation. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here, Darragh, and very much look forward to the conversation too.
Excellent. So David, I'll start off, as I always do, just asking if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe CX Index and the professional side of things, and then anything about yourself personally that you'd like to share as well.
Okay, grand. Well, I suppose David Heneghan has my name, originally from Dublin, Ireland, still based here, live in Stepaside before I started CX Index, which was back in 2012. I was working in commercial property. At the time, it was probably 2009. It was just, the crash had just sort of happened and it was very difficult to raise capital. So we published all these brochures and, really trying to, a real shot in the dark stuff, trying to send off brochures to all these top people from real estate globally. I think I got a list from Forbes or something like this. Sent off 100 brochures thinking we'd get a deluge of responses going, yes, we'd be interested in the conversation. Nobody responded except for two. So one was a very prevalent Irish businessman who I won't mention today, but another was they got a response from Donald J. Trump. And it was obviously like a boilerplate response. It was like, Mr. Trump is in receipt of your proposition. We really appreciate it. But it was kind of one of those funny ones. I still got the letter from the Don saying, that he wouldn't be interested in investing in our proposition. And I suppose that was one of the reasons that led me to starting CX Index. I was in the commercial property arena for a while, and the whole thing, the market crashed, and I was kind of left. One of the key things, that one of the key drivers of starting a business sometimes is being unemployed and figuring out, sometimes you've nothing to lose. It's the best time to start a business. So before I'd started CX Index, I'd actually worked as a trader in an investment bank in London. And that's kind of where the idea for CX Index came about. Because I'd always been interested in business strategy and did a master's in business strategy and all that type of jazz. I was always interested in how things work from that side of things. And it occurred to me that as traders, we were using Bloomberg technology to make decisions on where to allocate resources. And it occurred to me that the decision-making tools that traders had seemed to be, a little bit more sophisticated than the companies we were betting on, and something felt a bit off about that notion. But I actually, did a bit more research and figured out actually that wasn't the case, because as traders we're looking at price and operational efficiency and pretty tangible, whereas businesses are competing on price, operational efficiency, and customer experience, which is a lot more intangible and a lot harder to measure and manage. And I came up with this idea to try and apply some of the tools that we had as traders in the context of customer experience. And little did I know, I did a bit more. And before I did that, though, I went off into the job in commercial property. And then I came back to the idea because I also thought it was a really good idea. It was a niche that I wanted to scratch. And I got into it. And I realized actually there was a whole burgeoning industry dedicated to this thing. So it just, what made sense to me was actually already an industry. And at the time it was called Enterprise Feedback Management. And we basically, I came up with the idea to try and, apply some of the learnings from that. But there was a whole, it was just a burgeoning industry at the time, and the term CX had just been relatively new at that point in time. Before companies like Qualtrics now would call it XM, they're trying to create a category around it, but it's ultimately CX, and that touches all the different interactions you might have with the brand. But basically, we created a tool around CX Index, and it's 10 years ago this month. So we're going 10 years, and it's kind of a tale of two halves. The first half was kind of relatively slow burn for us because we did a lot of customization work, and it took a while for us to get going. But in the last since 2020, we've built out this cloud app, and it's really taken off for us. So it's beginning to get going for us now, which is great. So that's a little bit of background. And so had worked as a trader, worked in commercial property. Got a rejection note from Donald Trump, and then moved into the whole area of customer experience. So that's a bit about my background.
Excellent, and congratulations! 10 years going is that's a big milestone.
It is a big milestone, and I think our growth rate and stuff like that in 10 years, it probably could have been a little bit faster, but we haven't taken any external funding. So it's been slow and steady, but the increase in growth has been really quick in the last year. So the outlook is really strong for rapid growth in the next couple of years. But I've enjoyed every minute of it, and it's a great thing. If anyone ever wants to go out and set up a business and has a feeling inside them that they feel like they need to get out there and do something, I'd always, I think it's a risk not doing it rather than doing it, to be honest with you, because it's just such a great experience. And if it doesn't work, you'll learn a bunch from it,
Excellent. That's great bit of inspiration for people who will be watching this. David, can I ask you, in terms of customer experience, I often hear the term used interchangeably with customer success and customer support. What does customer experience mean to you?
Customer experience to me means, I suppose, what would I say? In very general terms, customer experience is any experience a customer has when they interact with the brand. So this could be like, there's so many different interaction points that you have with the brand, and that could be with a shop, utility company, and shops have become omni-channel, so they're online and in store now. So it's getting a lot more complex, and the net is going wider, which leads to opportunity, but also increased complexity. But like, if you look at the example of, let's say, buying a car, what's the experience around that? So there's so many different things that can lead to your decision in buying a car. Like, it could be something like, did a friend of yours have that car in the past? Did a parent have the car, that brand? So that brand means something to you emotionally. Do you see an ad on television? Is there a sensory experience there? Do you like the music they have in the ads on TV? There's all these different factors at play. And then once you see an ad, or you've made a decision that you'd like to buy a car, you probably jump onto the website and, try and figure out, if the website works well, that's a really important step, because it's another touch point, an important touch point in the experience. And the website will probably ultimately lead you to a dealer to buy the car. But before you go to the dealer, you're probably going to go online and read some reviews by some motoring journalists or from other peers who've bought the car, to make sure that it's okay, and that the people are happy with it, and you're not buying a lemon or something that really isn't that good. So like, there's so many different facets and elements and complexity in customer experience now, in terms of how you manage it and how you understand it. But ultimately, the idea is that if I see the ad on TV, if I like the car, if I have a good experience on the website, if I go into the dealership and that goes well, I'll buy the car. When I buy the car, hopefully all going well, there's no problems with it. But 2 years down the road, I've got a light flashes up, and I have a problem with it. The experience then continues into the service I get from that car manufacturer or the dealership. And then ultimately, a couple of years down the road further than that, do I want to buy another car? And if my experience with this car is good, then I'll buy another car from the same manufacturer again. But then again, I might want to mix it up and may not. But the thing is, if there any of those things that are meant to work break, the likelihood is I won't purchase that car again or from that manufacturer. Whereas if that manufacturer does a great job for me, and I've got great family experiences and I have a great emotional connection, I can develop great loyalty and affinity with that brand. And suddenly you can have a customer for life. And obviously the whole thing about customer experience is, if you deliver a great experience, it's much more cost effective to retain a customer than the cost of trying to attract a new customer. So the whole thing is around just basically delivering a great experience so you can help people retain customers. And in business, that's really the key competitive battleground these days, because a lot of things have become commodified. So it's how we can connect with consumers on an emotional level that's really important these days. And that's what customer experience is about to me.
That makes total sense. And even as you're describing it there, you've probably gone through, the car is a great experience. It's probably what we do for a huge amount of products out there, and it's really interesting that it's no longer just about the product, no longer just about the sale. Like, it's everything from first hearing about it, that first bit of marketing or advertising, right through to post sale and the support that you're getting later on, all feeds back into that initial purchase decision.
Yeah, ultimately how it makes you feel, like, and what's your connection with the brand, and that can be just a satisfaction thing. Sometimes the best experience, let's say for example, if it's a utility company, the best experience is no experience at all, because who wants to call the utility company about a problem? So and that's where the whole thought process around customer effort goes, because People want to put forward as little effort as possible to get certain things done. Whereas with other experiences, it's about how did we connect with you? Did we exceed your expectations? So depending on the industry, experience is a different thing, but experience is definitely omnipresent in our lives now. It's something that we need to be aware of. And as businesses, if you don't compete or understand the importance of that, the likelihood is you'll fail. And if you don't fail, you won't be very profitable. So it just has to be central to everything that a business does these days. Put the customer first.
You've probably half answered my next question. I was going to ask you about, kind of why is it so, we're hearing so much about customer experience today, and I'm trying to figure out why it's so important now. Even like 10 years ago or 11 or 12 years ago, when you first had the idea around customer experience, when you're doing that trading, and it sounds like in the last couple of years, your business is really starting to boom and you're looking at big growth ahead in the years ahead. Has something changed? Why is it so prevalent today?
Well, I think there's research to state that, millennials, something like over 70% of millennials will spend more money, like to spend money on an experience rather than a material good. So we live in an economy where people are really into experiences, and the advent of Instagram and social media, all these people are sharing the experiences they have all the time online. So because they're, that's where people are spending their money, it makes sense for businesses to be good at it, because at delivering good experiences, because if they do that, the rewards are magnificent. So I don't think in terms of our business, I don't think anything, in the overall scheme of things, I don't think there's been a massive change. In our business, it's just we've changed the way we deploy our products. So it's a cloud app that's more out of the box, that's easier to deploy, less customized. But in the context of experience, there's been so many different changes in the world in terms of how people interact with digital technology and people, what they prefer and what they value, that it's becoming more and more prevalent to just be really, really strong at customer experience. And, people say that we're living in the experience economy, and, there's several, if you look at many of the services out there, they are largely commodified. So it is about just differentiating. And there's I can't remember, it was one of the customer experience thought leaders who came up with a nice little nugget about glue, which is to give little unexpected extras to make people stick. So it's a nice little sort of thing to think about. So it's not about just necessarily providing the service and the product. It's also about just doing that little bit extra more to differentiate yourself. So then the customer will come back and stick. And I think that's a nice way of describing it as well. But it's massively important in terms of, I think, demographically where people are in their headspace these days.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And even as you're talking about it there, I'm thinking about my own experiences that I've had when there was something I kind of wasn't expecting that just added to it and made me think, well, I made a good purchasing decision here. These are the guys to stick with. How do you think companies are doing today? Have you seen, like, how are they managing it? I mean, you're probably seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly in terms of customer experience management.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's kind of during the COVID pandemic, there was I was talking to Gartner analysts there, and they were telling me that, of all the industries or all subsections where they work, that customer experience was one of the few areas where they're seeing an increase in spend by companies, because they realize now that it's largely the only show in town in terms of sustainable competitiveness to be good at customer experience. So yeah, you see the full spectrum. Some companies are just not very good at it. Some companies are good at it, and I don't think there's any sort of silver bullet to solve it all. But I do think what's really important is that it's part of the culture of the organization, that it's something that comes from the top down, that employees, if you've got happy employees, you'll have happy customers. So you need to ensure that the experience of the internal customer is as good as the external customer. And there's all these different elements at play. But what companies will do these days in order to improve experience is they'll do a lot. So they'll invest a lot in technology, and they'll really try, and they're trying much harder to understand and be responsive to their customers and to offer personalized experiences. So they're leveraging technology in contact centers. they're leveraging technology like CX Index, our platform, to really understand customers across a range of touch points, and things like bots to make sure that customers get to the solution they want faster. But obviously, the really smart companies use a hybrid of bots and personal experience, because the bot will only take you so far. But also the bot can be very valuable because it can really speed things up. So companies are getting a lot smarter, and they are investing a lot of cash in it. And some of them are doing it well, and some of them are not doing it well. And I think, what's really interesting, I think, is if you look back about, we've lived in an era of massive transformation. So, like, if you see the likes of Airbnb or Netflix, they've transformed two industries. So the accommodation industry has been really, shaken up by Airbnb. They've massive market capitalization, and what that does, it enables people to have more control and more choice in terms of where they stay and in terms of locations and that type of stuff. With Netflix, what's happened in the entertainment industries, it puts the control in the hands of the customer. They can watch what they want, when they want. After a while, you're probably running out of options on Netflix, so you'll probably have to get Disney or something as well. But but the idea is that it gives customers a lot more control in terms of what they want to do. And I think the whole thing is that companies that understand that if you can personalize things and make things more relevant for your customer at the point of interaction, they're the guys that will do well. And the companies that think that a one-size-fits-all solution will work are generally not doing very well. So that's my overview on it.
Yeah. That's actually another question I was going to ask is around kind of technology and how companies are using technology today to help with delivering customer experience. And I know, David, you have a software platform that actually helps companies do this. Can you tell me a little bit about the technology? Like, two things I'd really like to chat to you about is a little bit about the technologies that are out there and how that's disrupting customer experience. And then I think you made a really interesting point as well around the mix of technology and like that human interaction.
Yeah. So yeah. Sorry, go ahead there. Sorry, I interjected. Excuse me.
No, I guess if we looked at the technology first, how we see technology disrupting customer experience, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about your product, and then we can look at after that. Then I might ask you about the human side of it and the technology piece together, and what the weight should be. I guess it depends on industry, etc.
Yeah, well, I suppose I gave examples of two companies there that have really disrupted industries. So we look at Netflix and Airbnb, and there's loads of other, Uber and all these things. So those things have had a real impact, and those companies have grown from nothing to behemoths in the space of a few years, right? So because of that, a lot of companies that have been around for many decades and often even centuries, these guys have gone, hold on a second, we need to change the way we deliver our solutions. So all the big technology companies understand that by delivering a better customer experience and helping companies do that, the technology companies can make revenue off that. So they've developed all these different tools to make it easier for companies to serve their customers. And these companies are more than willing to pay for these tools, because it means at every touch point, so things like their website and their e-commerce channels and their call center, every single touch point where they interact with the customer, the companies are investing to try and make these interactions more seamless. And because of that, it's kind of it just never ceases, basically, because everyone's always trying to get a competitive advantage over their competitors on all these different areas. So I suppose where we come in at CX Index is in customer experience. If it's not measured, it's not managed. So I suppose just like you might use an accountancy software to understand where your finances are in a given day, you'd use CX Index or a voice of the customer technology to understand how you're performing a customer experience. And Gartner, the industry analysts, will say that there's, according to their VOC vendor guide, there's about 1,000 survey. We do surveys, but we also do other stuff as well. But there's 1,000 voices of the customer of survey vendors globally. Right. Of them, they see around 30 leading the way based on their vision and technology, and CX Index is listed in that cohort of 30. So that's quite good. But what we've had to do, though, is we've had to continuously innovate. So what we've seen a massive amount of growth in recent years is obviously we do surveys, so we can do surveys for chat windows, for iViewer, which is on telephones, we can do speech to text, do natural language processing, all these different things to understand how the customer experience has been at all these different touch points on the website or whatever the interaction point is. So we've got tools to measure that and do all sorts of analysis around that. But in addition, and one of the cool things is actually we can close the loop. So if someone has a negative experience, we sort of run a triage on it and do all this sort of automatic analysis, but then we can set up escalations to make sure that the right person deals with the problem that the customer has. So so that can be resolved, and we spit out information and statistics on that. So for example, one of our customers, a leading North American retailer, they reduced the number of cases or issues they had by over 60%. And that was a really great outcome, because what happens there is that the number of times a customer needs to handle them, has to have a problem with them, has reduced by 60%. So that reduces the cost to serve the customer very significantly, but also by using our platform to understand what those issues are, they resolve those issues. So for future customers, those issues don't recur. So it's a really strong way of reducing the cost to serve the customer, making the experience more seamless, reducing customer effort. But on the flip side, satisfaction goes up significantly, loyalty increases, and when that happens, customers spend more money. So everybody wins. So it's a real simple ROI. But so that's on one side. We do customer feedback and we do sort of case management surrounding that. We've got an interesting tool called Social Advocate. So if someone has a positive experience from a feedback perspective, we automate the process of having that customer advocate the brand, so we can actually push them onto sites like TripAdvisor or Trustpilot if they're satisfied. So if someone is happy, because a lot of the time they'll just go onto those sites when they're unhappy, but we'll recognize when they're happy and we can redirect them to those sites automatically, which is great. But in addition to that, on the other side of things, we create all these natural language processing tools to help people understand free-form text and verbatim and all that type of stuff. So any sort of text, even speech to text, we can transcribe speech to text and run analysis of that. So when we built all that technology, we said, you know what, we should actually start understanding what customers are saying about brands in an unsolicited environment. So on social media, so we can act as a listening post across all the major social media channels. And if someone mentions a brand, we can then respond to that customer all through the CX Index platform. So we connect into the social media platforms on our platform. We can respond to the customer. But if someone says something negative about a brand, we can look at the sentiment and we can prioritize those issues. We're working with an airline in the Middle East, for example, and if the word wheelchair access comes up, we get an alert because that's obviously a high priority issue. We want to respond to that customer immediately. So our system can act as a listening post for a range of different social media sites. We can also listen to what customers are saying about your competitors in social media as well. But we also, in the same way that we do the case management piece on the surveys, we can also do case management and respond to customers around issues through messaging, social messaging as well. So the I suppose breadth of what we do has expanded significantly in the last couple of years, but we're seeing a great demand for the capabilities we've developed there. So that's in a nutshell. Sorry, I probably went a bit too far in that, but that gives an overview of some of the stuff we're doing.
No, that's excellent. I guess what really came out there was, to be able to administer or manage customer experience at scale and hear what customers are really feeling and thinking and doing, you absolutely have to have the technology. I mean, what you described there, I couldn't imagine a team of individuals sitting in an office. Like, you'd need thousands and thousands of people. So that technology is crucial for companies who want to kind of manage this experience at scale.
Oh, absolutely. It's like some of our customers will be getting, easily 100,000 feedback responses at once. So, you can't handle that manually. But also, if you need to escalate something, though, we can help. We can really help companies understand what issues need to be resolved, through technology. But also, we can give all sorts of statistical analysis to help them understand, okay, what's broken, how do we fix it, and then let's just keep doing this as an iterative process. And as you work through these issues, you'll actually find the trends on the graphs in terms of satisfaction, they start going up. It works. It's not like, it's not rocket science. It's just actually just figuring out these things are broken. Let's fix them. And then as you keep going, you'll keep coming across things that are broken. You keep fixing them, and those things will become lesser and lesser through time. The cost to serve customer will decrease, and customer satisfaction increase, and everybody wins. So like, it's a no-brainer actually for companies, and that's why the business in which we're operating in, voice of the customer market's increased fivefold from its 5.6 billion in 2017. It's now running at, it's going to be 22 billion this year, and they expect it to grow by 12.3% over the next 8 years. So there's a real significant amount of growth in this market, and we're only scratching the surface. Like, there's huge amounts of stuff still to be done, and I always worry, I have a healthy paranoia around what are the new things in the market, what's coming out, like, are we going to be left in the rearview mirror? But what we're doing now is still absolutely relevant and very much to the core of many customer requirements.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's very. Do you have something similar for the employee side of it? Is it mainly outward facing, looking at the customers, or do you look at? Yeah,
we help companies measure employee experience as well. We've just been so busy in a lot of our, I suppose, installations focusing on customer experience that we've only actually started getting around to that recently. So we've built out a module for employee experience that is largely, it's kind of repurposed to what we had done for customer experience, but there's a few different nuances there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got that technology. We're just launching that as part of our new cloud app at the moment, and we've done a few iterations with a few customers. So yeah, that's available.
Very cool. Very
and it's,
cool.
It's critical, actually. It's critical because you'll find, and it's quite interesting in certain organizations that are global. You'll see that certain, let's say, employee experience is really strong in one market. The customer experience will be stronger in that market. But if employees are not happy in a certain market, you can be sure that there's a correlation with customer experience. So generally one follows the other. So if you can be good at employee experience, the customer experience, it won't take care of itself, but it definitely enhances it significantly.
Yeah, wow, it just makes total sense. I don't know if I've seen many companies doing it, but that makes total sense. You can't have one without the other.
Quite a few doing it now. Yeah, it's a very competitive industry in which we operate, but we are very confident with our offering, and we've very low level of customer, next to zero customer churn. So when customers start with us, they stay with us, and we put a huge amount of effort into ensuring that we do whatever we can to make sure that they deliver a great experience for their customers and employees.
Excellent. A customer experience company getting their customer experience bang on. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Are there kind of fundamentals that you have to get right in terms of customer experience? Are there like a top 5 things that you always see in those companies that are successful, or is it maybe more nuanced on industry?
Yeah, I think it's fairly fluid. Like, so it depends on the industry. Like, and I wouldn't say there's necessarily a framework per se that you can follow for customer experience. But what I would say is that we definitely see the same characteristics in successful iteration. So senior management buy-in is always really important, right? Where companies where it's something that's it's not a box ticking exercise, but it's something that is really important from a senior management level. We find that drives people to really pay attention to this. So senior management buy-in is always important. Getting the employee experience right, always very important as well. Using tools like CX Index to make sure you're measuring and manage. If it's not measured, it's not managed. So you need to use a tool like CX Index to really understand and get to the bottom of what's working and what's broken. And basically those type of things are really critical. And yeah, just, I suppose, putting the customer first when you're making decisions, to think about how would the customer feel about this, and that's always obviously an obvious one. And one thing we would also say as well is if you're designing a CX program, what outcomes are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to achieve increased customer satisfaction? Do you want to make more sales? Do you want to reduce customer effort? It could be a combination of these things. But when you're trying to understand these outcomes, you need to try and design a program that you can relate to those outcomes, so you can actually measure the performance against those outcomes. So we work with customers all day long in designing this stuff. And, it's really interesting. What I love about our job is that, there's no industry the same. There's no organization the same. We work with companies in nearly, I think it's every continent now, and they've all got, different issues, different customer problems. And it's really fascinating. So it's a job that I love doing.
Yeah, wow, that's very cool. And I guess in this age of transformation, digital transformation, your skills will be very much called upon by organizations who are trying to make sure they're not going to be in the rear view mirror of an up and coming competitor. That they're there. So you have to have it from the top down. You need your system in place to manage and measure it, and clear objectives. You need to know, like, why are you implementing this? What is it that you want to achieve? What are the outcomes that you're looking for? Which it's not just CX for the sake of CX. There's very clear targets and goals that you have in mind when you're bringing it in.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, and I'll say it's not rocket science. It's more just putting the building blocks in place and doing everything in a systematic manner, so you can actually figure out what needs to be done. And then once you have those, it's really easy. It's not really easy. Nothing's easy. Sorry, but it's quite easy to identify what needs to be fixed and all that type of stuff. And we help companies with that, and make that job a lot easier for them.
And David, where can they go to learn a bit more about CX? Can you recommend some sites? Or CX Index, of course, is one place.
Yeah, go to cxindex.com if you want to understand. Happy to have a conversation. If people want to reach out to us, get in touch. But also, there's loads of different really good websites and forums. There's things like the Customer Experience Professionals Association, where you can get qualified in it. There's an Irish company called CX Academy. They're training people in customer experience. There's loads of different tools, and there's lots of thought leaders out there who can really help people in the area of customer experience. But we're obviously very happy to help anyone who wants to come along and understand customer experience and how to improve it for the business. But I'll tell you, if you just go on to put CX into Google, you will find all sorts of companies. Like every big technology company is getting in on this act, and because there's a huge, everyone understands how important it is, how critical it is as a component for business success. So everyone's getting on board the CX train, as it were. Actually, and if you want to, the extension .cx is Christmas Island, I think, in the Pacific Ocean. So if you look at something .cx, that's actually also Christmas Island. That's a little nugget for you there. But
right.
a lot of companies go to the oracle.cx. That's it's like Oracle Christmas Island. But a lot of companies are taking on CX as their end domain in the whatever you call it, like instead of .com or .au, it's .cx. Actually, that's not about customer experience, it's about Christmas Island. So that's a little bit for you.
Very cool. Good to know. Listen, David, that's been a super conversation. Some really great insights and great information. Good nuggets there for anyone who wants to learn more about customer success or customer experience, I beg your pardon. And look, I'd just like to say, first of all, thank you very, very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and the very best of luck to CX Index as you guys grow into the future. It sounds like you're built to win. So look, thank you for joining me today in the podcast.
Much appreciated, Darragh. Thank you very much.